Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Colony Pit, where we catch up with our favorite colony friends and alumni. And on today, we have an all-star guest, a great guest, Rex, who's on the hot seat for us.
Yes, John, we have someone from the class of 91 that we are going to go down memory lane with. We have Rich LaMotte, formerly known as Rich Duma from Colonie High. Rich, welcome to the Colony Pit.
Thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here. First, congratulations on what you guys are doing. I told you before we started, it's about time we get on the map and get our little town on the map. So I've certainly been talking about it since I left the town in 1991. So yeah, class of 91. I got my yearbook right here, and you guys are
Nice.
in there somewhere. You're a couple years
Yeah,
ahead of me, but yeah,
yeah,
Colony is it's home, but it'll never be home. It's one of those type things.
awesome. And we're going to talk about probably a lot of places on a map today with your adventures and
Yeah.
your military career and that. But to start off, we're going to keep it right at Colony and kind of go down Colony memory lane and
Should we
get
start
you
with the
all
name
warmed up.
change? Because I think probably a lot of people are probably wondering about that. Let me
Yes,
tell you
thank you.
real
Thank you
quick.
for reminding me. Let's go over the
Yeah,
name
yeah, yeah.
change, then we'll get into the colony warm-up questions. Thank you.
So my whole life, Rich Duma, went into the military as Rich Duma in 1992, and I was Rich Duma for the better part of my entire military career. And then almost 12 years ago, my wife and I found out we were having a little boy, and I wanted him to have a birth name, a blood name. So my maternal grandfather's name was LaMotte, and because I don't know who my birth father is, we decided to change my name to LaMotte. So LaMotte is
Okay.
now the official name. So it's kind of like the artist formerly known as. So
Right, right.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's good to know, and I'm sure that cleared up a lot of confusion right there. So Rich, going back in the day, let's just say you're back in high school, early 90s, and you get a little sugar craving, you want some ice cream. You got the keys to the car. You get to pick up four people back
Okay.
in the early 90s.
Yep.
Who are you picking up to go to Curver Cream, and what flavor are you getting?
Okay, well, I was a Curver Cream guy, but I lived in the village, so we were Elkins. Elkins was going. It was probably our first choice, and
Okay.
plus I could walk there too. But I got the keys to the
All right.
car, so I'm going to Curver Cream that night. I'm getting Jeff Clark. Jeff and I have been friends since literally birth. So I'm grabbing Jeff at 15 Space Boulevard, and we're buzzing over to pick up George Stolas right around the corner,
Yep.
and then we'll stop by Adam Knapp's house and pick up Adam, and then we'll probably buzz all the way over to John Papa's house and grab him and pick up John Papa and then swing into Curver and get the ice cream.
Okay. And what flavor are you getting?
I'm getting vanilla with sprinkles, and I like the
Oh,
peanut butter as well.
vanilla
Oh,
sprinkles. That is an all-American answer right there, I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah,
It's maybe a prediction of things to
yeah.
come. But
yeah.
go ahead, John.
All right, Rich, here's a question. It's 1990. I'm going to go 91 here. Where were you most likely to find you at? Goodals or Secrets?
Secrets. Everybody who knew me knew I was going to Secrets every Friday and every Saturday night. Yeah, in the
No, no,
mirror,
no.
in front of the mirror, probably voguing. Probably.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
There was no dress code, but you probably, made the
Dress
dress code, right?
dress to impress, maybe skids,
Yeah.
Di
Ooh.
Cavaricci's.
Yes.
I worked at his place in Colony Center, so we got all the
Ooh.
discounts on the clothes. So yeah,
Yeah, we actually mentioned his place on a previous episode with Dennis Romanowski and the
yeah,
Skids and all that. So
oh yeah,
that is classic early '90s gear right there.
absolutely.
Speaking of his place and malls and such, back in the day, what was your favorite mall? Northway, Colony Center, Crossgates, Latham Circle, or Mohawk?
Was always Colony Center. I mean, I used to go to Northway because it was across the street as a kid, especially
Yep.
go to Time Out and play video games, and then go over to Cosmos Pizza and have some pizza. But I was a Colony Center guy from the moment I could work. We were all working at Colony Center. Plus, you could walk there through from the
Yep.
high school. So Colony
Yep.
Center was my spot.
Awesome.
Nice. Cosmos, actually, we haven't heard that one before,
No,
Yeah,
so
remember
good.
that's a
Cosmos
colony.
Pizza in
Yeah.
Northway Mall? Yeah,
Yeah.
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 All right, Rich, here's one. It's August. It's hot. It's muggy. It's sweaty. Where are we going to find you at? The Great Escape or the now defunct Waterslide World?
Water slide world. I almost died there actually. When I was young, like Forest Park era. I was up there in the wave pool, and
Damn.
the lifeguard had to actually jump in and save me. But yeah, definitely water slide world. But we had a pool in my backyard, so we used to be in there a lot too.
Cool.
Nice.
Were you a Blockbuster or Hollywood Video guy back in the day?
Yeah, Hollywood Video up on Central Avenue.
Right.
That was, I used to go up there. I did go to Blockbuster every now and then. As a matter of fact, literally, you guys probably know this or don't know this, but I'm in my building right now where I house a lot of my collection, and probably 10 feet away from me is my Blockbuster video card. Literally. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
so funny.
Yeah.
I keep everything. Anybody who knows me, I'm a collector extraordinaire, so I keep everything. And but yeah, I was a Hollywood Video guy. Those guys up there at again right there off of Central Avenue. So and then
Yeah.
bouncing back and forth between Blockbuster.
What going into either video store, what section would you go to first? Like action,
Horror,
comedy,
horror,
horror? Okay.
horror, horror. Around
Yeah.
the corner from here, I've got my own chamber of horrors with my life-size characters, and I was a horror guy and still am to this day. So
So,
All right,
what's your
cool.
favorite horror movie? What's the favorite horror movie?
Halloween,
Oh,
1978, John Carpenter's first one.
Ooh,
Yeah,
old school.
absolutely. Yep.
very
Nice.
nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep.
All right,
And I
Rich.
actually
Here's the
own a
last.
few pieces from Halloween too. So
Oh, do you really?
yeah, I've got
Nice.
let's see, I've got some leaves that were sprinkled along the sidewalk because they were filming in the middle of the summer, so they had to get up all the leaves, and then when they stopped filming, they had to bag them all up to save them for the next. So I've got some of those that I got from the production designer, and then I've actually got a pair of tennis shoes that PJ Souls' boyfriend was wearing in the movie. So yeah,
Oh, no kidding. That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
All right, here we go. Is our last warm up question. Where are we most likely going to find you? Chuck E. Cheese, Ralph's Tavern, or Little Anthony's?
Ralph's. Definitely Ralph's. After school dances, it was either Ralph's or Ground Round. But if Jay DePaulo had anything to do with it, we'd end up at Ralph's because his mom worked there, and eventually his sister Gina worked there. So we always knew we could get a table, especially after a school dance or anything. And love their mozzarella sticks with the raspberry
Yeah.
sauce. Even today, when I go home, I'm going to Ralph's to get the mozzarella sticks.
Right.
Nice.
Just out of curiosity, you mentioned you grew up in the Village, and we're going to get to that in a second. But were you a Pizza Hut guy across from the Colonie Community Center as well? Was that a spot
Yeah.
for you?
Oh yeah.
Or
This is the
yeah,
early days, yeah, well
yeah,
before Dunkin' Donuts
yeah.
was there. I was a Pizza Hut guy, yeah, because again, I could walk to it, down
Right.
off, basically through the Sandhills, down Locust Park, and across the street.
Cool.
Oh, wow. All right, Rich, here we go. So we'll get going now. And as we've been doing this, we like to start at the end and have what's going on right now with you. So what is your current situation? Are you married? Do you have kids? And where are you living at?
Yeah, my wife and I have been married for about 22 years, and we live in the Western Mountains of North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
It's near about 60 miles north of Asheville, North Carolina, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We moved here in 2019 when I retired from the Air Force, spending the last 17 years of my 27-year career in the Air Force up at Joint Base Andrews in the Washington, D.C. area. So when I retired, we found a great property down here in the Western Mountains of North Carolina, and this is where we live with our little boy who's 12 years old. So my wife's name is Michelle, and our son's name is Hudson. Michelle and I met over in London, England, where she is from. I was stationed over there. So we met in 1999 and then got together. And then we've been together ever since December 27th, 1999.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's great. We're going to go back the complete opposite way in the time machine right now. You told us a little bit about where you grew up in Colonie, in the Village, Locust Park area, very familiar with that. Colonie Community Center, that whole area right there. Garcia's was a popular spot back in the day.
Yeah.
Did you always live in Colonie? And when you did live in Colonie, can you name some of the people who lived in the general vicinity around you?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So, yes, the answer really is yes. I kind of always lived there. I did leave for about a year and go to Rotterdam in between, but my grandmother's house and my house was always the central hub, and I was born there, and that's where I ended up living my entire life. In fact, poetically, we just actually sold my grandmother's house yesterday. So,
Oh wow.
it's kind of a closure that we
Yeah.
lost my grandmother this year. So it was kind of the last piece. So that's really hard. The death,
Yeah.
she was 96, so that was okay. But that losing the house and all that I ever known, that's a little hard. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. Tom Casey on Locust Park, Jay DePaulo on Locust Park, Freddie Bouye on Delafield, Beth Nowicki on Delafield as well. Of course, they had the Colony Pharmacy, Mr. Nowicki for many, many years. Down the corner was Sebastian Bastiano, who owned the Village Auto Body Shop, and his two daughters, Tashua and Tanya.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those guys were all around, and Jeff lived on Space Boulevard, and so did George.
Awesome. Um,
Nice.
can you actually? I was just thinking about this the other day. I've never asked anyone this on the show, but can you remember any of the home phone numbers of your friends from back in high school? Because I can.
869-6696 is Jeff Clark's. 355-892-12 is my friend John. My phone number was 869-0524. It's my password for several different things right now.
Yeah,
Let's see. Yeah,
it's
869
crazy though. Yeah,
9912 is my friend Marty's. So yes, the answer to your question
yeah,
is yes, I can remember them.
And
Which is
and,
crazy
and
yeah,
here's the
because I can't even remember my wife's cell phone number.
yeah.
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 The 869 number that was a dead giveaway for the village of Colonie because everyone in the village had the 869. I'm trying to think if I can. I can think of two guys instantly that had 869 numbers. Todd Hesner 869-4456 and Matt Rabit 869-3375. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy how we remember that stuff.
It is crazy.
Wow.
It is crazy. It's embedded.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, all right, we know where you grew up in Colony. We'll kind of get to high school now, and it's kind of a very high level 5,000-foot question. But if you could kind of summarize for our audience what 4 years of Colonie High was like for you, what were you into, what were your interests, kind of what were you up to, either
Yeah.
in school or out of school, and kind of take us through those 4 years that ended in 91.
Yeah. So I always say that when people want to know about high school, I always kind of describe it as the after school special school. I feel like we had that after school special school. You had the preppies, you had the sports guys, you had the burnouts, you had a little bit of everything in the group. High school to me was hard. Because I was a little different, I like to sing, and my dress style was a little crazy back then because I worked at his place and I got involved in all the fashions. So, I was sometimes got made fun of a lot because of that. So that was a little tough, but
Yeah.
I loved high school. Involved at DECA, Distributing Clubs of America. The year that I got involved in it, we won the national championship. I was the national champion for Distributive Clubs of America with Mr. Rogers. If you guys remember Mr.
Yep.
Rogers,
Mm-hmm.
great teacher. So I was involved with DECA. I was all 4 years in the ski club. So Wednesday night, you would find me at Jiminy Peak in the wintertime
Mhm.
in the ski club, catching the bus out front and then heading up to Jiminy Peak for nighttime skiing. So that's about the most sports I did. I didn't do
Yeah.
any football or basketball or anything like that.
Mhm.
But I certainly supported our high school with lacrosse and the games and everything else like that, because I mean that's where the girls were, right? Everyone was watching the games, so you wanted to be there. So
Right.
I certainly supported that, but skiing was my sport and still is to this day.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
loved high
let
school
me ask
though. I mean, I have great memories of high school. Like I said, I pulled up my yearbook. It's right within arm's reach. The other 3 yearbooks are in the back. My Sand Creek yearbooks are back there. So I'm telling you, I know when I say collect, I keep my stuff forever. And I can go back. I like to go back and kind of relive things. Or, if I'll get a friend request and I'll have to call Jeff and go, hey, do we know this person? Like, when did they graduate? That kind of stuff. So after meeting
Right.
so many people over the years, you kind of have to do that. But I have nothing but great memories of everybody we went to school with, pretty much. Even the guys who beat me up.
something I do remember you. and again, I'm just trying to remember, but the one thing I do remember was you were very well dressed, and that was
Yeah.
the one thing. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
looking back on high school, like who would you say out of all the teachers would you say would be the one that kind of give you like a path or just like a mentor when you're in high school and when you're about to head out into the real world?
Yeah, good question. Definitely Mr. Rogers. He was a
Yeah.
great teacher. Really, really great teacher. He had just a super chill way about him. Plus, he had the store, so he'd always let us buy
Yeah.
candy and stuff after school.
Yeah.
So he was really definitely a mentor of me, I would say, in high school. As well as Mrs. Ferber. I was an
Oh
art
yeah.
guy. I had Mrs. Ferber in elementary school, and then she eventually would transfer up to the high school. And believe it or not, her and I still talk to this day on Facebook. So
Oh,
Oh wow.
that's what's really cool is, Facebook is one of these great platforms where not only, has it brought us together, but, it's connected me literally with people that you would never know kind of what they're doing. And then eventually when you run into each other, you really don't have to waste time to find out what each other's doing. And you can kind of be in the moment, which most people aren't these days, because,
mm,
hey, oh yeah, you're retired, you did this, you did that. So after Facebook.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, you talked a little bit about, sometimes you didn't feel like maybe you fit in. And I think every high school kid goes through that in some form or the other. In some situations you might feel really comfortable, other situations you don't. I think that's pretty normal. What advice would you give to a kid right now in high school who maybe he's kind of going through that and feeling like, they don't really fit in?
Make friends with two really good all stars like Chad and Chucky Dukes, because nobody's gonna mess with you when you had friends in Chad and Chucky Dukes. And it's so cool when I saw
Yeah.
you have Chuck on, because
Yeah.
I can remember Warren Giddings is another great name. I
Yeah.
when I went to the graduation ceremony in 2022 when I got nominated for Hall of Fame. Warren Giddings came up to me, and I was because his daughter was graduating.
Ah,
So it was so cool to see him,
yeah.
after 30 plus years or whatever. So what I would say is be yourself. Don't let others scare you, or certainly in this day and age, bully you into
Mm,
being somebody that you're not. Bullying is such a problem. Whereas when we were all in high school, it was, but not, I don't even think to the extreme that kids are
no,
faced with now.
there's no
It's a
social
different
media, right?
There's a social media, exactly. So it's a
Yeah.
different form of bullying. Not only are you bullied in person, but then you're bullied for the world to see. And that is completely different. And it actually causes a different level. So, yeah, I would say, hey, get a couple guys who are probably the most popular guys in school. Be friends with them. Every now and then buy their lunch. I probably bought Chucky and Chad's lunch a lot, because I was always working. You asked kind of what I did when I was a kid. I was always working from the moment I could have my paper route in the village to literally going into the military. So I always had a little extra money. Plus, I always did hustling on the side, selling
Yeah.
jewelry for my uncle or doing all that kind of stuff. So Chucky and Chad used to hit me up a lot. So man, you guys come on, talk to a brother. I need some of that money back.
Yeah, well, good luck with that because I know
Yeah,
both of them very well, and you're not getting your money back.
no,
But two
I know.
great guys that I keep in that I still have pretty regular contact with. I know Warren as well. I haven't talked to Warren in many years. We used to call him Coolidge back in the day, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
another great guy too. So,
Yeah, they
well,
are. I
that's
love
good
those
advice.
guys, and
Yeah,
certainly they made high school fun for me. Yeah.
So,
awesome.
so actually, with that same question, looking back at your career, and we're going to get to that here in a second, what would you give advice to your younger self? Like you walk back in your freshman day, you're at the door and
Yeah.
you see your freshman self walking to Colony Central that day. What advice would you give yourself?
I probably academically would have tried to do better. I mean, I felt like I did really well. I was just above average. I certainly wasn't on National Honor Society or anything, but I did well at my SATs. But I would probably apply myself a little bit more academically. I didn't learn how to do that until I got in the military, and until I started
Mm,
taking my college courses. So I probably certainly would have applied myself academically, and I might have tried another sport. Like I often look at that and go, oh, maybe I should have tried something that was, like soccer or something like that, because I did see my friends succeeding in all of that, and that actually provided another avenue for them, team building. I did really well
yeah.
team building in the military, so I think if I would have had that back then, maybe I would have done well. But I think academically, I probably would have just applied myself a little bit more. But, I feel like in life, one does exactly what they're supposed to be. You have a plan, and then God goes, oh, that's funny, but this is not really, this is my
Yeah.
and so I think that you go through all your good stuff for a reason, you go through all your bad stuff for a reason. I certainly, and just the little bit you guys know about me from high school, I was the farthest thing from the military ever that
Yeah.
anyone could ever imagine. In fact, Jeff, Scott Fisher, uh, Adam Knapp, and myself, we all went in the military. Scott and Adam went into the Army, and Jeff and I in the Air Force. In fact, I went into the Air Force because of Jeff Clark. And
Oh.
if you want, I can tell you that story really quickly.
Oh.
I was working in Colonie Center. We had just retired. We had just graduated high school, and I was kind of going back and forth what I was going to do, whether I was going to go to Hudson Valley or if I was going to, maybe take a year off. Go to Texas to my uncle had a car dealership back then, and I almost thought about coming and selling cars. But Jeff came into the store and in Colonie Center, and he goes, "Hey man, I need a ride tomorrow to the Air Force recruiter." I was like, "You're going in the military?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to." I'm like, "What are you going to the Air Force for?" And he's like, "Well, I want to be a cop and I want to travel." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I gave him a ride, and we went to Troy, where his Air Force recruiter was, and eventually my Air Force recruiter. And I sat outside. And Jeff came out of the recruiting office, and the recruiter looked at me and he said, "What's your story?" And Jeff went, "No, no, no, no. He's not the guy. He's not military. He likes to sing and dance, and yeah, you need to keep looking." And the recruiter said, "You can do that in the military." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, you can sing and dance in the Air
Yeah.
Force. We have Air Force tops in blue." And I was like, "What is that?" And he was like, he told me about it, and I signed right then and there.
Wow.
And I went
Wow.
home and told my family I was going in the Air Force, and everybody bet against me. Everybody. My mother bet against me. Everybody, you name it. My grandmother, God rest her soul, bet against me. And certainly my friends did, because I was, like I said, the farthest thing from the military. I wasn't going to last
Yeah.
4 minutes, not 4 days, not 4 weeks, not four
Yeah.
years, and then on and then on.
Good for you. And if you haven't seen the episode with John's brother that we did, Tony Martinez, you should
Yeah.
watch part one, because he talks about how it's either part one or part two. I don't remember. He talks about how he got into the military, but it sounds like so like when you woke up the day after high school graduation,
Yeah.
you didn't have a plan. Like this
No.
all happened after like
Yeah, yeah.
graduation, the
So
summer
this
or
happened
something.
about 6 months after graduation.
Oh, okay.
I was working in Colonie Center, and we really didn't know. I think none of us really knew what we were going to do, except for Jeff. He was really kind of military minded. Adam had graduated the year before I did. Scott Fisher was in my class, and he changed his mind. He was going to Hudson Valley, and then he changed his mind and went into the military afterwards. So I really didn't have a plan. And it
Mm,
was, like I said, only until that day that I decided to go in the Air Force that
uh,
the plans kind of changed, and I never looked back.
that's a great story, and it just shows how quickly life can change for the better, and
Oh
so
yeah,
that's awesome. Because I'm assuming during your 4 years of high school, the military was never crossed your
no.
mind, or did it?
No, it did not
No.
ever cross my mind. I remember an Army recruiter came and
Yeah.
sat in the senior lounge once, and I talked to him, and I thought about basic training and what that would all involve, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm probably not gonna do that, be able to do that." So if you know anything about the military, the Air Force's basic training is supposedly the least hardest. Physical. Mentally, it's the hardest.
Yeah.
And what was to come later on that I go tell you about in my career, I ended up doing an advanced training to get my last job. So not only did I go to basic training in 1992, May of 1992, and you want to talk about San Antonio in May, June, and July in 1992, hot. But not only did I do that, but then 9.5 years later, I would end up going to survival school. to get what the job, which would have been the dream job that I ended up with. So I had those two things as far as my Air Force career. But I was Jeff and I stayed very on very similar paths. He wanted to be a cop. I wanted to just go in the military. I had no guaranteed job, except I knew that I wanted to sing in the Air Force, and I knew there was some way I had to figure out how I was going to be able to do that. So I signed up for logistics, and I was a supply logistics guy. And I went to, after I finished basic training in San Antonio, I graduated basic training in July of 1992, and I went on to Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, where I went to technical school to be a supply logistics person. So 6 weeks out at Lowry, Jeff had already graduated basic training. He went in about 4 weeks before I did. So he graduated, and he literally went from basic training one side of the base to his technical school on the other side of the base. And I can remember being at Lowry in Denver and being on the phone with him, payphone, by the way, being on the phone with Jeff
1-800 collect
on an AT&T calling card. No, on an AT&T calling card. And being on the phone with Jeff in tech school and being like, "Hey, dude, let's go overseas." And he was like, I want to do it another day, another time. I want to maybe stay stateside, and then I'll go overseas later in my career. So my first duty assignment, my first choice, you have what they call a dream sheet. And on my dream sheet was all overseas assignments, no stateside assignments. I thought if I put only overseas assignments, I would possibly get one of those. And my first choice was Italy. My second choice was England. And my third choice was Guam. And then it went on from there. And I got Italy, my first choice. So as a 19-year-old Italian-American kid from upstate New York, I was super great jazzed that I was going to go and live in northern Italy, for the first 2 years of my military career. And so great assignment. Jeff, on the other hand, got Minot, North Dakota. And as a security forces member, as a cop in Minot, North Dakota, you're doing one thing: guarding missiles for 12 hours a day. So that is what he knew of the military. So at the end of his time at Minot, he was kind of looking at transitioning out into the civilian sector and going on with his life. At the end of my 2 years in Italy, living over there from 1992 to 1994, I was then going to transition to my next duty assignment, which would be Andersen Air Force Base in Guam in the South Pacific, where I would spend 3 years, 2 short tours back to back, again, still as a supply logistics member. So I would be there from 1994 to 1997. Now, what I didn't tell you was back in 1992, when I got to Italy, first thing I did was get involved with Air Force Entertainment to find out how I could start doing those shows that my recruiter told me about. Got involved with Air Force Entertainment and literally stayed involved with Air Force Entertainment from 92 till the day I retired, whether it was doing shows or doing the national anthem for official events or performing, official functions or whatever. Air Force Entertainment was kind of a side Air Force job for me, aside from what I was doing professionally in the military.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So I'm in Guam, 94 to 97, 3 years there.
Nice.
And then I go on to England and spent 5.5 in England.
Yeah. Real quick, just explain for our audience, and then we're going to wrap up part 1, then we'll continue on with part 2. But just explain to our audience what supply chain logistics entails, because supply chain, that could be a lot of different stuff, but kind of what were you kind of focused on?
So I was the guy sitting in front of a computer issuing aircraft parts out. So the aircraft would come in, maintenance guys would come in and looking for parts, whether it be tires or even engines for that matter. We had all the parts. We would issue the parts out and then go out to the warehouse and pull the parts. I wasn't necessarily a warehouse guy until I got to an aircraft parts store in England where we kept the parts right in our warehouse. But I was at the central hub issuing the parts out for the airplanes to keep them flying. So Operation Deny Flight, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Provide Comfort, Operation Provide Hope. I was a part of all of these joint efforts that were involved in the United States for the United States contingencies.
Awesome. I'm going to say, Rich, first off, thank you for your service and answering that call. We all appreciate it. And like you said, too, we're going to end this episode right here. So for everyone, just continue to subscribe and follow us and stay tuned for part 2 with Rich LaMotte. Talk to you guys soon.